All right. Hey everyone. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. Maybe I should I play this back and see if I can hear it. My forehead's getting better. Um, like I look better there with a lower forehead, but my forehead is getting I shouldn't talk about this. It is getting a little bit lower. I just had my second hair transplant. It's been 3 months. This is not like an update on this, but I'll talk about it. You can see the hair starting to come in. It's going to take a while to get to the length of the rest of my hair. I mean, I'll kind of have some like little bang, kind of bang pieces for a while, um, which is fine, obviously, which will be fine. But I, even aside from that, even aside from the time it'll take to match the length of my hair, it does take about a year for the hair to kind of come in and fill in because it is growing in, it's coming in, but this is my second one, so I know from my firsthand experience, plus, like videos and stuff online in case you forget what it was like, but it just kind of takes a while for your hair to regulate to its normal pattern of growth. It takes about a year. It takes about 6 months to a year. And it was funny, after my first hair transplant, it was pretty much right at a year. I know a year sounds like just some kind of generic estimated date, but it was pretty much right at a year that I looked in the mirror and I felt like, okay, I felt like I actually feel really good about the way my hair looks. And it was right about a year's time. So anyway, so that's actually coming in. I'm looking forward to that coming in, actually, because I think it already makes my forehead look a little bit shorter. Um, and then as it grows in, it'll hopefully improve. And then I didn't intend to talk about plastic surgery in this video, but I might talk about it a little bit. See, I almost hesitate to say this. Can we talk? um, I hesitate to say this for a number of reasons. This is not plastic surgery related, but I am going to talk more about some plastic surgery stuff. But I'm probably going to anyway. I'll jump back and forth. I am a little depressed right now, and I hate saying that because that's so cringy. That's so like ew. Like everyone's depressed. Everyone's a snowflake. Like, and I'm kind of like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, so I think I've said something similar to this in prior videos, so I do go through the same thought process that I went through in prior videos, but it's like, I hate it when people say, sometimes, it depends. I think some people milk depression, and I'm like, someone who is on their deathbed would envy you so much right now, you know what I mean? So it's like, how dare you be, these are just my thoughts, I'm not giving advice. Like, how dare you be depressed? I think of me when I've had health scares, and I think of people who are in the hospital with health scares on their last, literally among their last breaths. It's like, how dare you be depressed because even if you've had bad things happen or sad things happen, you still have so much to live for. You know what I mean? Like, even just little things. So I do, and I am grateful for a lot. That's the thing. It's like, I do know the power. Hopefully I'm talking into this thing. Like, I do know the power of gratitude. But then sometimes I think if you do have something going on, when I grew up, I don't know if was generational. I think maybe a little bit of it was generational, but I think also a lot of it was kind of my house, just my household, you know what I mean? Like, what I was taught or inadvertently taught. It's kind of like, and I had a great upbringing. I'm not saying anything bad, but a lot was brushed under the rug. It's like and a lot of like how my thoughts, this sounds so special, snowflake, like, we need a barf bag to say this, but it's like a lot, like when I was a kid, a lot of my thoughts and feelings that I didn't really understand how to process. Like, looking back, hindsight is 2020. I say that, but then, you don't always remember things 100% accurate either, which is another interesting thing. But it's like a lot of that was brushed under the rug. You shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't feel this way. So it's like, not only did I feel a certain way that needed attention, maybe, or where I like could have used like, okay, let's, how do I work through this or navigate this? not only was there that, but then there's also the element of you shouldn't even be feeling that. Why are you feeling that? No, don't feel that. So you try to convince. It's one thing when you try to convince others, but it's another thing. It's like another element of it when you try to convince yourself that you don't really feel the way that you feel. You're kind of in denial, and I think I kind of wised up a little bit the older I got. Sorry, I have my door open. I'm not on the first floor, so I have my balcony open, and I like heard a noise, so I'm like, looking out. Anyway, what was I saying? I was talking about brush under the rug. I kind of wised up a little bit, and I'm very much like it. I'm like, it is what it is. Like with things in life, I'm like, it is what it is. If I get bad news, or if I realize something that is not exactly, like you ever have someone say something and then you realize, oh, things aren't how I thought they were, and you have a moment where you okay, like, can I give an example from a movie? I don't really watch that many movies. I like movies and I should watch more of them. I want to watch more of them. I don't think it's a waste of time to watch movies. I actually think it's nice. I think it's not saying it's the exact same as reading a book, but somehow, like, I know there's the whole brain rot thing about watching TV all the time, so I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but I think it does enrich the soul to watch movies and watch films. I think there is a lot of beauty in that. Like, anyway, so I was watching a movie on the plane. I just got back from a long trip. I was watching a movie on the plane, and I was able to pay attention to most of the movie. I did doze off a little bit, and you did have people talking to you a little bit, and when you're watching it on the plane, it's like not 100%. But I was watching Bridget Jones. It wasn't the first or second one, which I don't think I've even seen any of those. It was Bridget Jones. I think, is there one called Mad About the Boy? I think that's, if there's one called that, then that's the one I watched. I think it was after her, which I don't even really, I didn't know, I mean, you can kind of piece it together, but I didn't know the full backstory. But this was one after her, I think it was her husband died. Her husband, who she had married, I guess after her many diaries of sad relationships or whatever, she finally got married and had kids, and her husband, the father of her two children, had died. He didn't die in that movie. The movie started after he had already died. She had already been widowed. Not widower. Widower is a man. Widow is the woman. So, but it was that one, and it took through like three. I don't want to like give away the movie necessarily, but it took her through like different relationships, and one of her relationships in the movie, it was with a guy who was younger than she was. He was like, I don't know what the age gap was, but it was more than just like a few years. Like he was, I mean, it's not like she's 90 and he was 19, it wasn't like that, but she was, I don't know how old she is in the movie. I don't know, but he was like in his 20s, I want to say. I don't think he was like a fresh 20. I think maybe like 26, 28. I don't know. And she was, I don't know, maybe in her 40s. I don't want to like say the wrong thing, but anyway, the relationship was, aside from the age gap, which I think she kind of was like a little bit insecure about, you know what I mean? Like as a woman being with a younger man, she's like she's wanting to feel like she's wanting to feel young, and being with a guy like that, it made her feel older, but they still had good chemistry, and she still really liked the guy, and the relationship was going good, and he didn't seem to mind. He seemed to really like her at first. And anyway, there was a moment in the movie where they had both, he had a little bit to drink, and he, sometimes when people are sleeping, when people are like half sleeping, they talk, but they say the truth. And kind of somewhat similar if someone's drinking, when you drink, you tell the truth. You know what I mean? Like you tend to tell the truth more easily than you would when you're more sober. And I think he had been drinking, and he had said something like, I wish I had a time machine, or something that indicated that this age gap that they had bothered him more than he had let on. And it was kind of a moment where it didn't end their relationship right then and there. Spoiler alert, their relationship did end. It wasn't solely to do with that, but I think that did have a big part in it. But it was kind of a moment where she realized, oh, I thought this relationship was going really well, and it was, but this issue that she was a little insecure about, but had thought it was okay, turned out to be more of an issue than she had wanted to think that it was. You know what I mean? More than he had originally let on that it was. And she kind of had a moment where things were going great, and then she realized, oh, it kind of like hurt her, for lack of better words. And the relationship played out, and eventually they did have ups and downs, but they did split. But I'm very much the kind of person, whenever I have a moment like that with anything in life where I'm like, oh, I thought this was like this, but it's like that. I'm very much like, it is what it is. Like, it is what it is. There's part of me that wants to like go on and pretend to be in denial, but it's like I say to people all the time, whenever I'm in a fight, or not even just a fight, whenever I'm in like a talk with someone and we're talking about something, I, and something is like a hard truth, whether it's like, it could be in any context, like it could be a relative with a health issue, it could be, if I was having a health issue, but like whatever it is, I always just have the ability to be like, it is what it is. It is what it is. So why did I bring that up? So I'm kind of in one of those moods right now. I'm always in one of those moods, but what was I talking about? Feeling a little bit depressed. But sometimes I think when you are feeling a certain kind of way, like I don't want to milk it. I don't want to be like someone who broke their leg healed, but yet they're still walking with a crutch even when they're fine. I don't want to be in that, but then at the same time, I get tired of pushing things under the rug. You know what I mean? I get tired of pushing things under the rug. I think because I've done that for a lot of my life, and even if I hadn't done that for a lot of my life, it's not healthy to push things under the rug like that, Sometimes, like, in the moment, to keep things moving, I will, depending on the situation, Like, if in the moment it's more appropriate to, like, just kind of not go there right now, I'll keep it moving. But then when I do have a minute to breathe and reevaluate, I'm like, okay, I think about it, or not even that you have to think about it, but it's like I let myself, like, it is what it is, have that moment. But anyway, I'm a little bit sad right now, to be frank. Like, and it's not the depression that I don't have depression, okay? But it's not the feeling of depression or sadness or whatever it is that I am upset about. It's the situation. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a mistake that I see a lot of times nowadays, as a lot of people fight this is all my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a professional in any of this stuff. I'm just your average. Am I average? I don't know. I'm just your normal. Am I normal? No one's normal. I hate when people are like, oh, no one's normal. But I'm just a regular guy, okay, who has thoughts and feelings and thoughts on topics and opinions and whatnot. So I'm just sharing that. I'm not professional anyway. But I think a mistake that I see in my mind is a lot of people fight the depression. They fight the sadness. They fight but I'm like, sometimes, you're depressed for a reason. You're sad for a reason. And it's kind of like you're fighting it's like if there's a fire and it's making you hot, like if there's a fire in the house, this is actually a really good example. If there's a fire in the house and the fire is making you sweat, it's almost like fighting the symptom of the depression is almost like you putting cold water on yourself to cool yourself down. There's a hot fire going on that's making you really hot and sweat and, making you have bad reactions. But you're putting ice on yourself and cool water on yourself. Like, in the moment, it might do something to technically alleviate the symptoms, but it doesn't really even truly effectively really alleviate the symptoms. Like, maybe on a clinical study, you could say, oh, well, you did cool down a little bit when you put that ice on yourself. But no, the solution would be to get out of the house, and put out the fire. Like, that would fix it. So I'm not fighting this depression. I'm more like, there's something going on, and I want to get to the bottom of it. And I almost wish I could share more. Like, that's one of my big, like, wishes, is that I could just share more, like, online. Because this is the thing, even if I am feeling something that is a little bit embarrassing potentially or whatnot, or even if I'm feeling something that I'm like, oh, like I'm maybe ashamed of or don't want to admit or whatever, I do have the understanding, like, at the end of the day, it is what it is. So that is kind of like a grounding thought to me, like not that I'm always, I mean, I'm honest. I'm an honest person. I'm very honest. I'm truthful. I'm like honest Abe, Abraham Lincoln. I have the honesty product about myself, or the honesty, like I have that. Um, but I also am a good sugar coater, like just naturally. I think sugar coating is underrated. Honestly, I think sometimes it's underrated. Um, but even when I am having a discussion with someone, and we are talking about something that is potentially upsetting, or not what I want to hear or not what someone else wants to hear, I think that is one of the grounding things that I usually come back to. Like, okay, it is what it is. It is what it is. I can try to pretend it's something other than what it is, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Anyway, so I'm a little upset about something. There's I could kind of tell you what I'm upset about, but I could tell you like maybe half of it. I could tell you like half of it, and I think people would relate to the half of it, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, yeah, you just need to do that and do this," and there's some truth in that or whatever. But really, what I'm more upset about is the other half that I can't really get into, and I would like to get into, but I can't. Maybe one day I can talk more freely about some of this stuff. Maybe not. I don't know. Um, I don't know, but I'm working through stuff, and I'm like actively, a lot of things have more to do than just with me. Like there's certain things that have to do with me and within myself that I can control, but then there's also things where other people are involved. You know what I mean? I'm not the only one with all the strings or all the cards. So usually what I do is I read the book, or I listened to the audiobook. I don't even know if I listened to the full thing. I might have just listened to part of it and then stopped. But there's this book called, a lot of people have probably heard of it, and I'm going to move on to some other topics after this a little bit, but there's this book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I remember one of the things he said in the book, which I'm paraphrasing, this is all from memory, okay? So, disclaimer, this is not like professional advice, or I'm not quoting him anyway, just from memory. He said something like, think of the worst case scenario. Think of, okay, what are you worried about? What's the worst case scenario? And so I do that a lot. I will think about something and I will think of the worst case scenario. And then another thing that I do, which I don't think he talks about this in the book, but I do, I kind of flip it in my mind. I think about something. I think about the thing that I'm worried about, and I think about how I want it to be in that moment. And then I think, okay, well, worst case scenario, what if it's not that and it's like this? And then I kind of go there, and I kind of accept it. And then I flip it. I accept it and I flip it and I say, okay, well, if this is the worst case scenario, how would this actually benefit me? If I want this to be like this, I don't want this to be like this, but if this is like this, even though that's not what I want right now, how could that actually work for me? So I kind of flip it in my mind and I kind of make it work for me, and that actually does help. And it kind of gives me a strength, because in that moment I kind of let go. You know what I mean? I've had a few times in my life, might even be having some times in the more or less present moment, where I let go. I just let go, and I'm kind of more or less okay with whatever outcome, where I'm just kind of like, I would like this, but I don't know that that's going to be, it's not really looking like it's going to for sure be that way. So if it's not, how can it work out? And then it's kind of, what it's like? It's kind of like, have you ever had a bad dream at night? Like, have you ever had a bad dream and the dream's really bad stuff happens, but then you kind of, in the dream, you kind of start to turn it around. You kind of start to pick up the pieces and you start to pivot and you start to kind of work it out. And then you wake up and part of you is like, okay, I'm like glad I woke up because that was a bad dream. But there's another part of you that's like, hey, I was fixing that. I was in the middle of fixing that. Then I woke up. You know what I mean? So anyway, um, speaking of pivot, I kind of want to pivot and talk a little bit about surgery, plastic surgery. So I started with, should I talk? I don't know. It feels like not the right move to change in this conversation. I kind of do want to talk maybe about some work, some other work that I'm looking to get done. I don't have anything on the roster for like the immediate future, but I do have some things that I am kind of thinking about. I will say the nose is still swollen. Still swollen. It's been 3 years, still swollen. It could very well take another year. People never believe me when I say that. They're like, it looks fine, it looks fine. It doesn't look swollen. Trust me, it's compared to what it should look like. I hear people yelling, so I'm like looking out. I don't think it's anything. Actually, I don't think anyone's yelling. I think it's just like there is yelling actually. Hang on. All right, I'm not. Okay, I don't want to like spy. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like I want to finish talking about what I'm talking about, but I can't focus. I need to like focus. All right, I think it's fine anyway. The nose. Oh, okay. I don't even want to talk about that because whenever I do, it doesn't translate right. So I'm just going to drop that subject for right now. But I'm looking at getting. I'll talk about it. I'm looking at getting my under eyes done, lower bleph, and I could go back to the same guy who did my nose. You know, if I do end up getting this done, I may go back to him. I also may want to look for. I want to go to a surgeon who like really specializes. That's one thing that I've learned and I'm learning. I want to go to a surgeon who really specializes in the kind of look that I want to achieve. Like with my first rhinoplasty, I made the mistake of going to a doctor who liked things to look too natural, to look natural. Natural is good, but it's like too natural. Like, okay, too natural is ugly. You know what I mean? That I don't mean it like that, but like I want to get it done for a reason. You know, he's like, "Oh, I want it to look like it could I don't want to give you a new nose. I want to take what you have and just refine it." I'm like, "No, I want a new one." Like I should have just been more strong about that in my initial consultation. I was young though. I was 20. I didn't really know what I was doing, but this next doctor who I went to for this one was more focused on he didn't want to make anything look unnatural, and I don't think he gave me anything that looks unnatural, but the focus was more on how I wanted it to look versus, oh, let's take what you have and work with it. He did take what I have and work with it. Like that's not exactly what I mean, but I'm like, it's kind of like if someone, I know I do that with my eyes a lot. It's kind of like if someone has brown hair and they want to be blonde and you say, oh, let's just give you a few caramel highlights, and they're like, no, I want to be platinum blonde. You know, it's like, okay, let's bring out the bleach. You know what I mean? Like I kind of needed someone to do that, but with this anyway, I can tell the swelling's going down, and it's not just visual. It's not just what you see visually. It's feeling wise too. It's like physically this area is harder, and it's getting better. It's just anyway, but thinking about getting these done, the under eyes. And I've always had dark under eye circles, and it's funny because a lot of other people are more bothered about this than I am, but I am starting to think that on certain days where I just feel off, because like sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'll feel like, okay, I feel okay right now. Like sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, all right, I feel like, I feel okay, actually. I feel good, dare I say. And then sometimes I'll look in the mirror and I'm just like, something's off, something is off. And I think sometimes when something is off, I think this could have a lot to do with it. Even though under eye circles in of themselves don't necessarily bother me, I feel like it adds a characteristic to the rest of the face that can throw everything else off, if that makes sense. So I think getting these done might make me feel a little bit fresher, but I'm also interested in fat transfer. Okay, fat transfer under the eyes, but also fat transfer in other areas. And I'd rather do fat transfer than filler because I think fat transfer, from what I understand, okay, just, not giving advice, but fat transfer does not migrate in the same way that filler can migrate. In fat transfer, it's your own fat from your own body. It's not a foreign substance, so it's more natural to you. Like it lasts, you know what I mean? Well, there's actually debates because they're like, well, does filler really dissolve like we think it dissolves? Maybe not, but fat transfer lasts. That's something that is going to be more permanent than filler that you're going to have to go back and get redone and deal with it migrating or whatnot. Like I don't want to have to worry about getting filler and having an area filled and having it migrate. You know what I mean? So I'm interested in fat transfer, not just under the eyes, but other places too. And I kind of want to go to a doctor who may be looking at things in a way that I'm not looking at things. Like there might be something that would benefit me that I'm not realizing. You know what I mean? Like I'm not just going to blindly trust, but if he says, which I don't think he would say this, but if he says, you know what would really set you off if you had your brows enhanced, you know what I mean? If you had your brows protrude a little bit more, that would really define your face better. And, it's something maybe you hadn't thought of, but that would give you the look you're trying to achieve. I would trust something like that. You know what I mean? Like I would be like, okay, let me think about that. I'm not just going to I have had my very first nose job doctor did talk about doing the chin nose combo. Not that I'm against that, but I just intuitively didn't feel like I really needed the chin at the time. Even though my chin was recessed, my chin probably is still a little bit recessed, but I'm learning more about facial posture, and I'm getting better and better over time at practicing better and better facial posture, and that does kind of fix the chin being a little bit too recessed, So I'm kind of glad that I didn't get the chin implant, because then if I had gotten it and then I started practicing better facial posture, even though the chin implant may have helped me in the beginning, once I have better facial posture to fix everything else, then it may throw me out of balance in a way that I wasn't out of balance before I had it. So then I might be looking at getting the chin implant removed. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm against getting a chin implant. I've thought about a chin or like a jaw. I don't know if jaw wrap is the right thing, but not just chin, but like, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to do that unless I went to the doctor and he was like, if we do a subtle one or a natural one, I think that will really help you achieve the look you're looking to achieve. Like if I was convinced that I needed it and that I could get a better result by doing that versus just practicing good facial posture alone, then I would be more open to it. You know what I mean? I have done dental work. I've had braces. My teeth were straight, but then I aside from my teeth being straight, I have done dental work since then, like within the past, I don't know, couple years or so, like past less like 3 years maybe, in order to help my jaw shape, like in order to help, because your teeth they're a big part of your facial structure. So I do think that I did see some benefit with that, with getting some dental work redone, not to straighten my teeth, but to broaden. I needed a broadening of my upper jaw and lower too a little bit. They're able to broaden the upper one a little bit easier than the lower one, but anyway, I don't even know if I should post this because this is so all over the place, and it's funny, I always do this. I had some other topics I wanted to talk about other than some of the things I talked about now I thought about talking about, but I had some other things that I wanted to go in detail of, but I think maybe I'll just end it right here. I don't know. I am a bit sad. Like, I am hopeful. I'm like sad but hopeful, if that makes sense. I'm like sad but hopeful, but then I'm not holding my breath. But anyway, I'll end this here. Thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video, and hope everyone has a good day. Until next time, adios.